The shuttle's landing clamps had barely kissed the Imperial platform when the containment field shattered. Princess Velsha stumbled backward, her forearms clutching her swollen abdomen as the diplomatic escort froze in formation. The human male, Marcus Chin, according to the dossier, stepped through the airlock with his hands raised, but every Kael'thari guard saw what mattered. The princess was pregnant, and she had been declared infertile by the Empress herself 3 cycles ago. "Stand down," Velsha gasped, but her translator glitched, rendering the command as static. The guard captain's weapon hummed to life. Marcus moved without hesitation, placing himself between the barrel and Velsha's body. His eyes held no fear, only the steady calm of someone who had calculated this moment long before arrival. "She needs medical attention," he said in flawless Kael'thari, the guttural consonants rolling from his throat like he'd been born speaking them. "Not a firing squad." The captain's secondary eyes widened. Humans weren't supposed to master the old tongue. It required vocal cords they didn't possess. Yet this one spoke it perfectly, and worse, he spoke it with the formal inflection reserved for addressing the throne itself. Velsha's knees buckled. Marcus caught her with practiced ease, supporting her weight as if he'd done it 1,000 times. The guards saw the intimacy in that gesture, the way she leaned into him without hesitation. This wasn't a diplomatic arrangement gone wrong. This was something else entirely. "Get the Empress," the captain whispered to her second. "Now." The throne room cleared in 40 seconds. Empress Kael'thai stood alone at the far end, her 8 ceremonial blades gleaming in the starlight filtering through the crystalline dome. She had ruled for 2 centuries, surviving 7 wars and countless assassination attempts. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until her daughter walked through those doors carrying a child that should not exist. "Mother," Velsha said, and the word carried such weight that the air itself seemed to compress. Kael'thai's gaze slid to the human. He met her eyes without flinching, without the reverence every other species showed. She could kill him with a thought. Her neural implants connected directly to the station's defense grid. One pulse and he would cease to exist. He knew this. She could see it in the set of his shoulders. He simply didn't care. "Explain," the Empress said. Velsha straightened despite the obvious pain. "The physicians were wrong. I was never infertile. The problem was genetic compatibility. Our species has been breeding within too narrow a gene pool for millennia. We're dying out, and we didn't even realize it. Impossible. We've tested millions of combinations. Within our own species. Within known allied species." Velsha's primary hands pressed against her belly. "We never tested humans because the genetic gap seemed insurmountable. But Marcus is a xenobiologist. He saw what our physicians missed." The Empress turned her full attention to the human. "You're claiming you solved the medical crisis that has plagued us for 8 generations? "No, Your Majesty," Marcus replied, still using that formal inflection that made Kael'thai's spine stiffen. "I'm claiming your physicians were asking the wrong question. They focused on compatibility percentages and genetic markers. I focused on enzymatic triggers and mitochondrial adaptation. The human genome is remarkably plastic under the right conditions. We're evolutionary generalists. That's our strength. Show me." Marcus pulled a data crystal from his jacket. A guard snatched it, scanned it, and handed it to the Empress with a nod. She inserted it into her neural port, and went still as the information flooded her consciousness. The silence stretched for 3 full minutes. When Kael'thai's eyes refocused, something had changed in them. "This data is verified?" "The child is the verification," Velsha said quietly. "I'm 16 weeks along. The fetus is healthy, developing normally, and genetically stable. I brought full medical scans. Everything you need to confirm what we're telling you." Kael'thai descended from her throne with measured steps. She stopped precisely 1 meter from her daughter and extended her primary hand. Velsha placed the medical scanner in it without being asked. The Empress activated the device, and a 3-dimensional image bloomed in the air between them. The fetus rotated slowly, its forming features visible through translucent skin. It had 6 limbs. 4 arms, 2 legs. Kale-Theri's structure with subtle human influences in the bone density and cardiovascular system. A hybrid that should not be possible. But there it was. Alive. Growing. Undeniable. The Council will demand answers, Kelvier said, her voice carefully neutral. I know, Velshaw replied. That's why I came home. I'm not hiding what happened. I'm not ashamed. I'm offering a solution to a problem that will destroy us within 3 generations if we don't act. The Empress deactivated the scanner. Her eyes found Marcus again, studying him with an intensity that would have broken most beings. He stood motionless, waiting, his hand resting lightly on the small of Velshaw's back. A protective gesture. A claiming gesture. You understand what you've done? Kelvier said to him. It wasn't a question. Yes, Your Majesty. I've given your daughter a child. I've potentially solved your species' infertility crisis. And I've complicated galactic politics in ways that will echo for centuries. He paused. I'd do it again. The throne room doors exploded inward. 7 council members swept inside, their robes billowing, their expressions ranging from shock to fury. They must have been monitoring the security feeds. They must have seen everything. Empress, the lead counselor began, his voice trembling with poorly controlled rage. This is a violation of... Kelvier raised one hand. Silence fell like a blade. My daughter returns after 6 months abroad with proof that our species can survive, the Empress said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. With proof that the right partnership can overcome what we thought was biological fate. And your first response is to speak of violations? The counselor's throat sacs deflated. Your Majesty, the human has a name. Use it. The counselor's secondary eyes twitched. Marcus Chin has bypassed every protocol, every treaty, every obstacle that stood between my people and extinction. Kelvier interrupted. Yes. I noticed. She turned back to her daughter. You will submit to full medical examination. Every test, every scan, every genetic analysis our physicians can devise. If this data is accurate, if this child is truly viable, then we proceed. If there are complications, we address them. But we do not hide. We do not retreat. We face this as we have faced every crisis. With open eyes and unwavering resolve. Velshaw bowed her head. Yes, Mother. And you, Kelvier said to Marcus? You will cooperate fully with our medical staff. You will answer every question, explain every methodology, and share every piece of research that led to this moment. Nothing held back. Nothing classified. Our survival may depend on your complete transparency. Understood, Your Majesty. The Empress looked at the council members, who stood frozen in various states of outrage and confusion. This session is concluded. We will reconvene in 6 hours after the initial medical reports are available. Until then, spread no rumors, make no judgments, and remember that whatever we decide in the coming days will determine whether the Kale Theory exists a century from now. She swept past them without waiting for acknowledgement, her blades singing softly against their sheaths. The guards fell into formation. The counselors scattered. Only Marcus and Velshaw remained in the center of the empty throne room, her weight still supported by his careful strength. That went better than expected. He murmured in human English. Velshaw laughed despite everything, the sound ragged with relief and exhaustion. Your optimism is terrifying. We're still alive. That's better than several scenarios I ran. How many scenarios ended with us dead? 47%. He guided her toward a resting bench carved into the wall. But the successful 53% had one thing in common. What? Your mother wants her people to survive more than she wants to maintain tradition. He helped her sit, then knelt beside her so their eyes were level. The data is too strong. The need is too desperate. She's a survivor, Velshaw. She'll adapt. She might exile us. Make an example. Allow the research, but punish the breach of protocol. Would you regret it? If she did? Velsha placed all 4 hands on her stomach, feeling the life moving inside her. The impossible life. The life that proved everything could change. No, she whispered. I'd regret nothing. The medical wing hummed with activity. Velsha lay motionless in the scanning chamber while holographic displays rotated around her, showing every angle of her physiology. Marcus stood behind reinforced glass, watching monitors that streamed data in 3 languages. The head physician, a woman named Telvra who had served the imperial family for 60 years, moved between stations with the precision of someone conducting a symphony. Heart rate stable. Neural development nominal. Genetic markers are. She trailed off, her secondary hands flying across the control panel. This shouldn't be possible. And yet, Marcus said quietly. Telvra glanced at him through the glass. The enzymatic cascade you triggered, it's rewriting cellular receptors in real time. Not damaging them. Not forcing compatibility. Actually rewriting them to accept a broader range of genetic material. That's the key, Marcus replied. Humans didn't evolve to be compatible with other species. We evolved to adapt to any environment, any condition, any challenge. That adaptability is encoded in our enzymatic systems. When you introduce human genetic material to a Kael'theri egg under the right conditions, you're not creating a hybrid through force. You're unlocking adaptive potential that was always there. But our people have been trying to solve this for decades. How did you? I didn't approach it as a compatibility problem. I approached it as an adaptation problem. Your physicians were trying to make 2 incompatible systems work together. I was trying to give one system the tools to adapt to the other naturally. Telvra's eyes unfocused as she processed this. On the scanning platform, Velsha's breathing remained steady, her expression peaceful despite the invasion of sensors and probes. If this works, the physician said slowly, if this child is born healthy and viable, you've just changed the course of Kael'theri history. You understand that? I understand that I love her, Marcus said simply. The rest is consequence. The door hissed open. Empress Kael'theri entered without announcement, her presence filling the medical bay like a shift in gravity. Telvra bowed immediately. Marcus remained standing, watching the Empress with that same steady calm. Initial findings? Kael'theri asked. The fetus is developing normally by all measurable standards, Telvra reported. Genetic stability is well within acceptable ranges. The hybrid characteristics are integrating smoothly. There are some anomalies in the immune system development, but they appear to be enhancements rather than deficiencies. Enhancements? The child is showing resistance to 17 different pathogens that normally plague Kael'theri infants. We think it's inheriting human immune flexibility. Telvra pulled up a comparison chart. Look at the antibody production rates. They're triple what we'd expect in a pure Kael'theri fetus at this stage. Kael'theri studied the data with an expression Marcus couldn't read. She moved closer to the observation window, watching her daughter breathe in the soft light of the medical scanners. What are the risks? The Empress asked. Unknown, Telvra admitted. This is unprecedented. We can monitor, we can test, but we're in uncharted territory. The pregnancy could proceed perfectly, or we could encounter complications we have no framework to understand. And if complications arise? We adapt. We learn. We do everything in our power to ensure both mother and child survive. Telvra hesitated. Your Majesty, permission to speak freely? Granted. This child represents hope. Real, tangible hope for our species' survival. Whatever political complications this creates, whatever protocols were violated, we cannot lose sight of that fundamental truth. Our birth rates have been declining for 3 generations. Another century at this rate, and the Kael'theri will be extinct. This hybrid pregnancy could be the key to reversing that decline. Kael'theri was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Marcus. You mentioned enzymatic triggers. Can this process be replicated with other humans? Theoretically, yes. But it requires specific conditions and careful preparation. This isn't something that happens by accident. And it's not guaranteed to work with every human Kael'thari pairing. Genetic diversity matters. Some combinations will be more successful than others. How many trials would you estimate before we develop a reliable protocol? Marcus met her gaze directly. Are you asking me how many Kael'thari women would need to partner with human men before we perfect the process? Yes. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. With full medical supervision, comprehensive genetic screening, and absolute informed consent from all parties. He paused. Your Majesty, this can't be forced. It has to be chosen. The psychological and emotional factors matter as much as the biological ones. Velsha and I didn't create this child through cold scientific calculation. We created this child because we chose each other. Love is a luxury my people may not be able to afford. With respect, Empress, love is precisely what your people need. You're not looking for a breeding program. You're looking for partnerships that work on every level: biological, emotional, psychological. That's what makes this viable. That's what makes it sustainable. Kael'thari's expression remained unreadable. You're very bold for someone standing in the heart of an empire that could erase you with minimal effort. I'm very motivated by someone lying in that scanner who trusted me with her life and the future of her species. Boldness is the minimum requirement. The faintest smile touched the Empress's lips. Just a flicker there and gone. My daughter chose well. She moved to the scanner controls and activated the communication system. Velsha, can you hear me? Yes, Mother. Her voice emerged from the speakers, slightly distorted but clear. How do you feel? Tired. Nervous. Hopeful. A pause. Proud. Of what? Of carrying the future. Of proving that change is possible. Of choosing a path that matters more than tradition or comfort. Kael'thari's primary hands tightened on the control panel. When you left 6 months ago, you told me you were attending a xenobiology conference on Proxima Station. You lied to your Empress. I lied to my mother, Velsha corrected gently. Because I knew you would try to stop me. Because I knew the political implications would paralyze any official attempt. Because sometimes saving a species requires taking risks that no council would ever approve. You risked your life. I risked my life to save countless others. That's what royalty means, isn't it? Sacrifice for the people? The Empress closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something fundamental had shifted. Telvra, I want hourly updates on the pregnancy. Any change, any concern, any anomaly, I want to know immediately. Assemble your best team. Pull specialists from across the Empire if necessary. This child will have every resource we possess. Yes, Your Majesty. Kael'thari looked at Marcus. You will remain in the palace under protective custody. Not as a prisoner, but as a valued consultant. You will work with our medical teams to document every aspect of this process. And you will prepare a proposal for how we might ethically and effectively expand this program if the birth is successful. I'll need access to human genetic databases and cooperation from Earth authorities. You'll have it. I'll contact the human collective personally. She turned back to the scanner. Velsha, you will rest, you will cooperate with medical supervision, and you will prepare yourself for the reality that your child will be the most scrutinized infant in Kael'thari history. I know, Mother. And when this child is born healthy and viable, you will stand beside me as we announce to the Empire that our survival is no longer in question. That we have found a path forward. That the future is secured. The weight of those words settled over the medical bay like a benediction. Telvra's eyes widened. Marcus felt something in his chest loosen, a tension he'd been carrying since the moment they decided to come home. You're authorizing this, Velsha whispered. Officially. I'm recognizing reality. Kael'thari replied. And I'm choosing hope over fear. As you did. As your human did. She stepped back from the controls. The council will resist. The traditionalists will demand your exile. Some will call this an abomination. But I am Empress, and I have watched my people decline for 2 centuries. No more. We adapt or we die. I choose adaptation. She swept from the medical bay without another word, her decision made, her course set. The guards outside fell into step behind her. Through the facility, whispers would already be spreading. The Empress had chosen. The Empire would follow or face her wrath. Marcus moved to the scanner window and placed his hand against the glass. Inside, Velsha's eyes found his, and she smiled with all four hands cradling the proof that impossible things could become real. The announcement came at dawn, broadcast across every Kael'thari world simultaneously. Empress Kael'thai stood alone before the Imperial seal, her ceremonial blades gleaming, her expression carved from stone and starlight. My people, she began, and the Empire held its breath. For 8 generations we have watched our birth rates decline. For 8 generations we have sought solutions within the boundaries of tradition and comfort. Today, I tell you that those boundaries have failed us. Today, I tell you that survival requires courage we have not yet shown. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. My daughter, Princess Velsha, carries a child. A hybrid child, fathered by a human male named Marcus Chin. This should not be possible according to our understanding of genetics and biology. And yet it is. This child exists. This child thrives. And this child represents a path forward that we must have the courage to explore. The communications channels exploded with activity. Marcus watched from a secure room in the palace, Velsha beside him, her hand gripped tight in his. I have examined the medical data personally. The Empress continued. I have consulted with our finest physicians and geneticists. The science is sound. The methodology is replicable. And the potential is extraordinary. We are not looking at a single hybrid child. We are looking at a renewal of our species through partnership with humanity. She let that statement hang for 3 full seconds. I know this challenges everything we believe about genetic purity and cultural identity. I know this will provoke fear and resistance. But I also know that in 100 years, if we continue on our current path, the Kael'thari will exist only in historical records. That is unacceptable. That is a failure I will not accept. Kael'thai's gaze seemed to penetrate the screen, reaching into every home and heart across the Empire. Effective immediately, I am authorizing the Renewal Initiative. We will partner with the human collective to establish voluntary, ethical, medically supervised programs for Kael'thari human partnerships. Every participant will choose freely. Every pregnancy will receive full support. Every child will be welcomed as a citizen of the Empire with full rights and protections. The communications channels reached a crescendo of chaos. Marcus could see the political calculations happening in real time. Some worlds would embrace this immediately. Others would resist with everything they had. Civil war wasn't impossible. Secession wasn't impossible. The Empire could fracture over this decision. But Velsha was smiling through tears, her free hand pressed against her belly, and Marcus understood that some risks were worth taking. I will not force this on anyone, Kael'thai said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade through silk. I will not mandate participation. I will not shame those who choose to seek other solutions. But I will also not stand by while my people fade into extinction for the sake of pride. We are Kael'thari. We have survived wars, plagues, cosmic disasters. We will survive this too. We will adapt. We will thrive. And we will do so with our eyes open and our courage intact. She raised her primary hands in the traditional gesture of unity. To those who fear this change, I understand. Change is terrifying. But extinction is final. I choose life. I choose hope. I choose a future for our children and our children's children. Stand with me. Build this new world with me. Or step aside and watch history move forward without you. The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the palace. Then, slowly, communication channels began shifting from chaos to conversation. Questions emerged. Concerns were voiced. But underneath it all, Marcus could hear something else, possibility. People who had resigned themselves to slow decline were suddenly discussing futures. Parents who had given up on grandchildren were calculating timelines. Scientists were requesting access to the research data. The Empire was waking up to hope, and hope was a powerful force. "Your mother just changed everything," Marcus said quietly. Velsha nodded, still crying, still smiling. "She chose us. She chose the future. She chose her people. This was never about us. No. But we were the catalyst. We proved it was possible. Now others can follow." She turned to face him fully, all four hands finding his too, the physical reminder of how different they were and how perfectly they fit together. "Are you ready for what comes next? The scrutiny, the pressure, the responsibility? I'm ready to stand beside you while our child changes the galaxy. Everything else is just details." The door opened. Telvra entered, medical scanner in hand, her expression carefully neutral. "Time for your afternoon monitoring, Princess. And Marcus, the research team is requesting your presence in the genetics lab. They have questions about enzymatic sequencing." "Of course." Marcus squeezed Velsha's hands once more, then released them reluctantly. "I'll be back in 2 hours. I'll be here, growing our revolutionary child and trying not to panic about being the center of galactic attention." He kissed her forehead, the gesture automatic and tender. Telvra pretended not to notice, but Marcus caught the slight softening in her expression. The physician had been skeptical at first, viewing him as a dangerous variable in an already unstable equation. But 3 weeks of working together had built grudging respect into something approaching trust. The genetics lab occupied the entire western tower of the palace. Marcus walked through security checkpoints that scanned him in 7 different ways, then entered a vast space filled with holographic models of DNA helixes and protein chains. 12 researchers looked up as he entered, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Dr. Chin, the lead researcher, a male named Kolvan, gestured to a central workspace. "We've been attempting to replicate your enzymatic trigger methodology with limited success. The enzyme cascade initiates, but it destabilizes after the 3rd generation of cellular replication. We're missing something fundamental." Marcus studied the holographic model rotating in the workspace. He could see the problem immediately. They were approaching it too mechanically, too rigidly. "You're treating it like a chemical equation." "It's not. It's a biological conversation. The enzymes aren't forcing change. They're facilitating adaptation that the cells choose to make." "Cells don't choose," one of the younger researchers objected. "They follow biochemical imperatives. Human cells do both. That's what makes us successful survivors. We follow imperatives until those imperatives stop serving survival, then we adapt." He pulled up a secondary display showing human evolutionary history. "Look at our species record. We've survived ice ages, pandemics, environmental collapse, radiation exposure. We don't have specialized adaptations like other species. We have generalized flexibility. That's the key." Kolvan leaned forward, his secondary eyes focusing intently on the data. "So you're saying the enzymatic trigger doesn't create compatibility? It creates permission for adaptation." "Exactly. The Kael'thari egg has the potential for broader genetic acceptance. It's just been locked away by millennia of narrowband reproduction. The human enzymatic signature unlocks that potential, and the egg adapts naturally to accept the genetic material it needs. But how do we replicate that permission state artificially? Not every Kael'thari female will want to partner with a human male." Marcus hesitated. This was the difficult part, the part that couldn't be rushed or forced. You can't replicate it artificially. Not fully. You need the complete biological context. The pheromone exchange, the immune system interaction, the hormonal cascades that happen during intimate partnership. Strip those away and you're back to incompatibility. The younger researcher threw up her hands. "So this only works through sexual reproduction? That limits the program severely. Or it focuses the program correctly," Marcus countered. "This isn't about mass-producing hybrid children. It's about building genuine partnerships between species. Relationships that include physical intimacy, emotional bonding, long-term commitment. Those relationships create the biological context needed for successful adaptation. Trying to bypass that context is trying to bypass the whole point. Colvan was silent for a long moment. Then, he deactivated the holographic displays and faced Marcus directly. You're asking us to fundamentally change how we approach reproduction. To move from controlled, planned genetic pairings to organic, unpredictable partnerships. I'm asking you to trust biology over control. Your planned pairings brought you to the edge of extinction. Maybe it's time to trust something older and messier. The Council will hate this. The Council isn't carrying the future in their bodies. Velsha is. And she trusted the mess. She trusted me. She trusted that love and choice and commitment would create something traditional planning never could. Another researcher, older than the others, spoke up from the back of the lab. I've been studying the historical data. 3,000 years ago, before we centralized genetic planning, our birth rates were triple what they are now. We had more genetic diversity, more hybrid vigor within our own species. Then, we decided we could optimize ourselves through controlled breeding, and we've been declining ever since. That's the pattern across most advanced civilizations, Marcus said. Optimization sounds good in theory, but biology doesn't optimize for single variables. It optimizes for survival through diversity, flexibility, and adaptation. When you narrow the gene pool too much, you lose resilience. You lose the ability to respond to new challenges. The older researcher nodded slowly. So we've been solving the wrong problem for 3 millennia. You've been solving a problem that didn't exist and creating one that nearly destroyed you. Marcus softened his tone. But that's fixable. Your species hasn't lost the ability to adapt. You've just forgotten how. Velsha and I are proof that the capacity is still there, waiting to be unlocked. Colvan pulled up a new workspace. Show us. Step by step. Everything you did, everything you observed, everything you learned. We need to understand this completely if we're going to help others replicate your success. Marcus spent the next 4 hours walking them through the entire process. The initial genetic screening to ensure baseline compatibility. The months of relationship building that established pheromone synchronization. The careful monitoring of Velsha's hormonal cycles. The precise timing of conception. The immediate post-conception support to stabilize the enzymatic cascade. He left nothing out. Not the intimate details, not the failed first attempt, not the terrifying week when they thought the pregnancy wouldn't hold. Science required honesty, and these researchers would be guiding future couples through the same process. They needed to understand both the promise and the challenges. By the time he finished, the sun had set. Colvan sat motionless, processing everything he'd heard. The other researchers had filled dozens of data files with notes and questions. This is going to work, the older researcher said finally. Not easily. Not quickly. But it's going to work. If we support it correctly, Marcus agreed. If we provide resources, medical supervision, psychological counseling, cultural education. If we treat this as the complex undertaking it is rather than a simple medical procedure. The Empress has authorized unlimited resources for the renewal initiative. Colvan said. We'll have everything we need. You'll need more than resources. You'll need humans willing to commit to this process. Earth will need to be fully involved. The Empress is meeting with the human collective leadership tomorrow. They're discussing framework for voluntary participation. Colvan met Marcus's eyes. You understand you've just made yourself the most important human in the galaxy? Every Kael'thari woman hoping for a child will look to you as proof it's possible. Every human male considering this program will judge the potential against your example. Marcus felt the weight of that reality settle on his shoulders. I didn't do this to become important. I did this because I love Velsha and I wanted to give her the family she deserved. And in doing so, you gave an entire species hope for the future. Intention doesn't change impact. No, Marcus agreed quietly. It doesn't. He left the lab as the night shift arrived, his mind spinning with everything that had been discussed. The palace was quieter at night, the usual bustle of staff and officials reduced to skeleton crews and security patrols. He walked familiar corridors back to the medical wing, where Velsha would be finishing her evening monitoring session. She was sitting up when he entered, reviewing something on a data pad. She looked up and smiled, and he felt the same jolt of wonder he'd felt the first time they met, that this extraordinary being had chosen to trust him with her heart and her future. "How was the lab?" she asked. "Intense. Productive. They're starting to understand the full scope of what we're attempting." "Are they optimistic?" "Cautiously. They know it will work, but they're grappling with how different this is from everything they've done before." He sat beside her on the medical bed. "How are you feeling?" "Strong. The baby is active today." She guided his hand to her abdomen, and he felt the flutter of movement beneath his palm. Still faint, still delicate, but undeniably alive. "That's incredible," he whispered. "That's our daughter," Velsha replied. "Changing the galaxy one kick at a time." They'd learned the sex 2 days ago. A girl. A hybrid daughter who would grow up as living proof that different species could create something beautiful together. The weight of that responsibility was staggering, but so was the joy. "Your mother announced the renewal initiative today," Marcus said. "The whole Empire heard her choose hope." "I know. I watched the broadcast." Velsha leaned against his shoulder. "She was magnificent. Strong and clear and completely uncompromising. This is happening, and anyone who can't accept it can step aside. There will be resistance. There's always resistance to change. But my mother has ruled for 2 centuries because she knows when to hold the line and when to charge forward. This is a charge-forward moment." She paused. The human collective responded. "They're sending a delegation to discuss the framework. Earth is willing to participate." Marcus absorbed this news. That was fast. Humanity has been looking for ways to integrate more fully into galactic politics for decades. This gives you leverage and importance you've never had before. Of course they're willing to participate. As long as it remains voluntary. It will. My mother gave her word, and her word is law. Velsha shifted to look at him directly. "This is going to be strange for you. Your homeworld will see you as a hero or a traitor depending on their politics. You'll never have privacy again. Every decision we make will be analyzed and debated." "I know. And you're still here. I'm exactly where I want to be." He kissed her, gentle and sure. "With you. With our daughter. Building a future that matters." The door chimed. Telvra entered, accompanied by a younger physician Marcus hadn't met before. "Princess, we have the results from today's genetic sequencing. Everything continues to develop normally, but there's something we'd like to discuss." Velsha tensed slightly. "What is it?" "Nothing concerning. Actually, something remarkable." Telvra pulled up a holographic display showing the fetus's genetic map. "Your daughter is showing markers for enhanced cognitive development. Not just combining Kael'thari and human intelligence patterns, but creating something entirely new. We think she's going to be significantly more intelligent than either parent species." Marcus stared at the display. "How significantly?" "We won't know for certain until she's older, but the neural density projections are extraordinary. She'll be able to process information faster, make connections across broader conceptual frameworks, and potentially access cognitive abilities neither species possesses independently." "She's going to be brilliant," Velsha whispered. "She's going to be unique," Telvra corrected gently. "The first of a new kind. And she's going to need careful guidance as she grows up understanding what she represents." "We'll give her that guidance," Marcus said firmly. "We'll make sure she knows she's loved first, important second." The younger physician spoke up for the first time. "Dr. Chen, Princess Velsha, there are 7 other Kael'thari women who have approached the medical staff in the last 12 hours requesting information about the program. They want to know if they can participate. If they can have what you have." 7 women. It had been less than a day since the announcement, and Already others were stepping forward. The beginning of something vast and unstoppable. What did you tell them? Velsha asked. That we're developing protocols and screening procedures. That it will take time to establish the program safely. But that yes, if they're willing to commit to the process and find compatible human partners, it's possible. The physician hesitated. They all asked to meet you. To talk to someone who's actually living this. Velsha looked at Marcus. He nodded slightly. She took a breath and addressed the physician directly. Tell them I'll meet with them. Individually or in a group, whatever they're comfortable with. I'll answer their questions honestly. I'll share what this journey has been like. And I'll support them however I can. Thank you, Princess. After the physicians left, Marcus and Velsha sat in silence for several minutes, processing the magnitude of what was unfolding. 7 women. Soon it would be 70. Then, 700. The renewal spreading across the empire like dawn breaking over a dark world. We did this, Velsha said softly. We started something that will echo for generations. You did this, Marcus corrected. You had the courage to take the risk. I just provided the biological component. You provided hope. You provided proof. You provided love that was strong enough to overcome every obstacle. She placed her hand over his, both of them feeling their daughter move beneath their palms. Don't diminish what you've given my people. Our people, he said. If I'm going to father Kael'thari children, if I'm going to spend my life here, then they're my people too. She smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. Our people. Our daughter. Our future. The future arrived 3 months later in a sterile medical suite filled with monitors and anxious physicians. Velsha's labor lasted 18 hours, longer than typical for Kael'thari births, but within human parameters. Marcus stayed with her through every contraction, every moment of pain, his hand crushed in her grip as she brought their daughter into the world. The first cry split the air like a declaration of war. High and strong and utterly alive. Telvra lifted the infant carefully, checking her over with practiced efficiency while the monitoring equipment recorded every detail for future reference. She's perfect, the physician announced, her voice rough with emotion. 10 fingers, 10 toes, 4 arms, 2 legs. Respiratory system functioning normally. Neurological responses excellent. She placed the baby on Velsha's chest. Marcus watched his daughter, his actual, real, living daughter, blink up at her mother with eyes that held both species and something entirely new. She had Velsha's bone structure and his darker skin tone. She had 4 arms like her mother and his cardiovascular resilience. She was a bridge between worlds made flesh. Hello, Kira, Velsha whispered, using the name they'd chosen together. A human name and a Kael'thari name merged into something that honored both heritages. Welcome to your galaxy. Kira wrapped her tiny fingers around one of Marcus's, her grip surprisingly strong. He felt something in his chest crack open, a love so fierce and protective it was almost painful. She's real, he said stupidly. She's actually real. She's proof. Velsha replied, tears streaming down her face. She's hope. She's everything we promised. The door opened. Empress Kael'thari entered, and every physician in the room immediately bowed. She ignored them, her attention fixed entirely on the infant in her daughter's arms. She approached slowly, reverently, until she stood beside the medical bed. May I? She asked quietly. Velsha nodded. Kael'thari extended her primary hands, and Velsha carefully transferred the baby to her grandmother's arms. The Empress held Kira with unexpected tenderness, studying every feature with an expression Marcus had never seen her wear. Wonder. Pure, unguarded wonder. She's perfect, Kael'thari whispered. She's absolutely perfect. Kira yawned, her tiny mouth opening wide, and the Empress laughed, a sound so rare that several physicians actually startled. She looked at Marcus, and for the first time since they'd met, he saw approval in her eyes. You've given my daughter what I could not. You've given my empire what we thought was lost. You've given us a future. She paused. Thank you? Marcus swallowed hard. She's our gift to each other. Velsha and I created her together. Equal partners. Yes. Kelvier looked back at the infant. And she will grow up knowing that partnership across species is not just possible but powerful. She will grow up as living proof that our differences make us stronger. She returned Kira to Velsha's arms, then activated her communication implant. Broadcast empire-wide. All channels. Within seconds, her image was being transmitted across every Kael'thari world. She stood tall, her ceremonial blades gleaming, her expression carved from determination and joy. My people, she began. Today, Princess Velsha gave birth to a healthy hybrid daughter. The first of many. The proof that our path forward is clear and viable. I present to you Kira Velchin, citizen of the Empire, heir to the throne, and living symbol of our renewed future. The camera feed adjusted to show Kira in Velsha's arms, Marcus beside them, a family that should not exist but did. The baby yawned again, completely unconcerned with her historical significance. The renewal initiative is no longer theoretical. Kael'thari continued. It is reality. And I invite every Kael'thari citizen who desires children to explore this option. We will provide support, resources, and guidance. We will build a program that honors both species and creates something new. We will survive. We will thrive. We will grow. She let the image hold for several more seconds, then cut the feed. Across the Empire, celebrations erupted. In some regions, protests formed. But underneath it all, something fundamental had shifted. Possibility had become reality, and reality could not be denied. The weeks that followed were chaos and wonder in equal measure. Kira thrived, hitting developmental milestones faster than any pure Kael'thari infant. The 7 women who had initially inquired about the program grew to 70, then 700. The human collective sent delegations. Protocols were established. Screening procedures refined. The first official pairings were approved. Marcus divided his time between caring for his daughter and training the medical teams who would oversee future pregnancies. Velsha met with prospective participants, sharing her experience with brutal honesty. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, it required commitment. Yes, there would be challenges. But yes, absolutely yes, it was worth it. 6 months after Kira's birth, the second hybrid pregnancy was confirmed. Then the third. Then 7 more. The renewal spreading across the Empire like a wave, unstoppable and transformative. Marcus sat in the palace gardens one evening, Kira sleeping peacefully in his arms. She was growing fast, already showing signs of the enhanced intelligence Telvra had predicted. Her eyes tracked movement with uncanny focus. She responded to speech in both Kael'thari and human languages. She was extraordinary, and she was his. Velsha joined him, settling onto the bench with a contented sigh. The council meeting went well. They've approved expansion of the program to include medical facilities on 17 additional worlds. That's more than I expected. The success rate is too high to ignore. 12 pregnancies, all proceeding normally. The traditionalists are losing ground. She leaned against his shoulder. We're winning. We already won, Marcus said, looking down at their sleeping daughter. The moment she was born, we won. Everything else is just logistics. Important logistics. But yes. Velsha stroked Kira's cheek with one gentle finger. She'll grow up in a different empire than the one I knew. One that's more open, more flexible, more hopeful. One that's worthy of her. They sat in comfortable silence as the twin moons rose over the palace. In the distance, ships came and went from the spaceport, carrying people and supplies for the renewal initiative. The galaxy was shifting, adapting, changing to accommodate something new. And in Marcus's arms, a hybrid child slept peacefully, dreaming dreams that would one day reshape the stars themselves. Proof that impossible things could become real. Proof that courage and choice could overcome any obstacle. Proof that the future belonged to those brave enough to claim it. The Empress had been right. Velsha had been right. Marcus had been right. They had chosen hope. And hope had chosen them back.